The American pipeline oil spill occurred on May 19th on Refugio Beach, unleashing 142,800 gallons of oil in total. This was caused by unattendance of the pipeline, allowing it to wear down to 1/16th of an inch and creating a 6-inch opening at the bottom of the pipe where the oil escaped from. The operators discovered the problem with the pipeline but could not stop it because there was no automatic shutoff valve installed. Local workers were not able to find the leak until half an hour later, long after the oil had spilled into the ocean. The result of the spill left oil polluted on land and on water, drifting down the coast and washing up on beaches, and also flowing from the surface of water to the depths of the water. The oil left about 100 live animals damaged, and 260 animals and other birds that were found unalive. The spill could have easily been prevented by regular checkups on the pipeline, and could have prevented the damaging of over 300 animals. A way we can prevent another spill like this is to not only have regular checkups on the pipeline, but to demand the pipeline to repair any damages immediately, so they can be fixed and secured as soon as possible. As for the damage of the pipeline, there are 3 ways we can do to reduce the amount of oil in the ocean. The first is through controlled burns on oil patches, the second being chemical dispersants in the water, and the third being a centrifugal water-oil separator. We wanted to understand more of what the effects of the spill had on the water ecosystem, so we contacted research oceanographer Uda Passau.
Was this oil spill a large-scale or a small-scale effect on the water ecosystem, and how did it affect it?
That's a big question.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's the oil spill I work on is the one in 2010, 5 years ago, in the Gulf of Mexico.
Yeah.
Now that was a truly huge oil spill. So compared to that, the one at Refugio Beach was small, but it's all relative, you know. It was still a lot of oil which went into the ocean.
Yeah.
It was very heavy oil. So the oil, I don't know if you realize that, the oil didn't actually go into the ocean directly. It was in pipelines on land,
Yeah.
and it leaked on land and formed this pool, and then drained through a drainage system under the highway onto the beach and ran into the water. So the whole thing could have definitely been avoided if there had been more diligence and faster reaction by the company, I guess. So the oil ran into the water, and it was a very heavy oil, which, you know, there's oils are all different.
Yeah.
What we call oil consists of like 100,000 different chemical substances, and so depending on the composition of these chemical substances, the oil behaves very different. That's why there's so many different kinds of oils. So this was a very heavy oil, which means it formed these big globs, you know, fist-sized big globs, which were floating in the water, and they were covering. Well, at first it was washed out, and then with the tide it came back in, and as it came in floating on the water, it covered all the rocks and the sand. But the more liquid part also goes into the pores of the sand and into cracks and crevices. So a lot of the oil goes to places where we can't see it, and some part of it actually really dissolves in seawater. Some forms just tiny droplets which are in the water.
Yeah.
And then some of this oil was actually seen on the sea floor. And at this point, we are not totally sure. There's different ways of how oil can get to the sea floor. You know, normally oil will not sink, but float. But there's different ways how it can get to the sea floor. And some of this oil was found on the sea floor, covering, you know, organisms which live on the sea floor, like sea stars or sea urchins, these kind of organisms.
Yeah. So
it affected many, so to try to come back to your question, it affected many different habitats. So it affected the near shore, the beaches and the sand, and it affected the organisms living freely in the water. And then, you know, in the short, shallow water area, first we have seagrasses, which are nurseries for fish and many organisms. So it affected the seagrass area, and then it came into the kelp areas, where it affected the whole kelp ecosystem. And then some of it got washed out even further, and we think that it came down all the way to Los Angeles and drifted far, so it definitely affected organisms in the open ocean.
Yeah. So, are we seeing like a large decrease in like the amount of organisms in the water?
That we cannot measure at this time.
Okay.
I'm not sure if we can ever. It's very hard to know the amount of organisms in the water without oil.
Yeah.
You can see it for one point at one time, but to see a direct change, we know there were some, we kind of went out and took samples right away, and we saw changes, of course, but we don't know at this time point if they're due to the oil.
Okay. And so you said there was like the liquid form of the oil. I know the solid form that's more on land is kind of easier to clean up. But what can we do to clean up the liquid form in the water and clean it out if possible?
Yeah, there's not that much we can do to clean up. I mean, some forms of oil, the lighter versions are more biodegradable.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of natural seeps in Santa Barbara, so we have bacteria which are used to dealing with oil. Also, this was a different kind of oil, and we know amazingly little about it, but most likely, and I haven't seen any results which actually measured this, but most likely bacteria began using some of the components of the oil and clean it up in that way.
Yeah.
Some of the oil will probably go into food webs, which is not exactly a cleaning up because it impacts the organisms and can be toxic or can lead to mutations. But it does remove it from the water.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, once it is really distributed in the water, there is not much we can do. In a large spill like the Gulf of Mexico, they tried to burn off the oil from the water, so they lighted it when it was swimming on the surface.
Yeah.
They also tried to collect oil from the surface. But here it distributed so fast, and because it was near shore where there's a lot of wave action, it was very hard to do anything with it once it reached the oil. They had oil boats out there and tried to clean it up, collect it right away, but from what I heard, they were not very successful.
As Professor Pasal mentioned, there's no real way of knowing what the effects of the spill will be in the future. The spill has happened too recently for us to see the changes it is going to have on the species of generations to come. The best we can do to help minimize the damage that has been done is to clean up all of the oil possible. It is clear that there is no way we can completely rid the oil from the water, but the more we remove the oil from the water, the lighter the effects will be. As Professor Pasal also mentioned, the oil spill effects cannot all be bad. She mentioned that there are certain bacteria that can remove the oil, so if there is a certain influx of bacteria, then more organisms will come to eat the bacteria, which will lead to an increase of all other animals. This would not only create a thriving ecosystem, but also good fishing grounds for humans and a chance to produce more food. Negatively, the oil spill can cause genetic mutations to the organisms because it is an alien substance and is harmful to ingest. Professor Pasal stated that there is already natural seepage from the ground and that this oil spill could not be that big of an impact after all. Overall, the best way to keep the ecosystem from being harmed like this again is to prevent this situation in the first place. Making sure that there are regular checkups on the pipeline and enforcing the fixation of any problems on the pipeline should be mandatory. This whole crisis could have been avoided if the pipeline actually decided to fix the faulty pipe when they first found it. Now, we're looking at a debt of $74 million if the pipeline stays closed for 3 years.